Welcome to a brand new episode of the Bold Take Podcast. I'm Austin Hill. With me, as always, is Austin Wader. If you couldn't tell by the state of me, I'm not doing so hot right now, but we had to persevere. We had to fight through it to get this episode out. This is one of the big weekends in college football for the Bold Take Podcast. We couldn't leave you guys hanging high and dry. I'm trying my best not to. But look,
Freaking warrior over here. Freaking warrior.
I wouldn't go that far. It's probably just going to be like a cold, and I'm just being a baby. Um, but let's get into it. Look, we had an awesome, and I mean awesome, rivalry week in college football. Obviously, this is always a week that you want to tune in for. Anything can happen. Although this year looked a little bit different in some regards because of conference realignment. There weren't we didn't see the full of extent of what rivalry weekend can be. But I think as conference alignment slowly adjusts and moves, and scheduling gets better with these new conferences and whatnot, and we get a little bit more comfortable in the new state of college football. I think we'll see some of these rivalries return, or at least some new attempts at rivalry games. Look, I mean, let's just be frank: LSU, Oklahoma, just not a rivalry game. Give us the Golden Boot game back for
Yeah.
Arkansas LSU on rivalry week. If A&M's going to play Texas, which I think is a great rivalry for rivalry weekend, let's do it. And either get Oklahoma and Oklahoma State back on the same page, or get Oklahoma and Mizzou playing in a game. I think that's
I don't get why it wouldn't be Oklahoma and Missouri. I mean,
yeah.
they are Big 12, right? They played in the Big 12 against each other for several years. They are literally right next to each other. Arkansas and LSU always used to play on the Friday after Thanksgiving. I don't get why they wouldn't do it. So yeah, that's my honest opinion on it.
But I think we saw some great rivalry games. And look, we came on here last week and we talked about how the chance to play spoiler and the chance to make upsets was going to make a lot of these games interesting. And it absolutely did. And some new teams having a chance at some life. But we start with one team looking to play spoiler, and that's Memphis. The only Thanksgiving game we had this year in college football, because for some reason they moved the Egg Bowl to the day after Thanksgiving, which the Egg Bowl ended up being a pretty decent and competitive game, especially at the start. Um, but Memphis upsets number 17 to Tulane, and look, this practically eliminates the American champ from the college football playoff. I know that Army got back into the rankings this week, but still, UNLV at 20, Boise State at 10 or 11. It looks like the winner of that game. I mean, there's no other path. Both of these teams would have to lose, and that's impossible to do in the conference championship, or just play so unbelievably bad. But yeah, it pretty much puts the American out of it and guarantees the winner of the Mountain West a chance to not only go to the college football playoff, but potentially have a bye in the first round.
I mean, it truly does. Again, yeah, it's unfortunate for Tulane, but you had the scenario at home to go out and do it, and Memphis came out ready to play on Thanksgiving. There's no other way of putting it. So yeah, they're eliminated. Mountain West Conference Championship is now a play-in game for the playoff. So that's going to be great to see on Friday night. I can't wait to watch that game between Boise State and UNLV because I'll be honest with you, Boise State the last couple of weeks, you wonder if their team as a whole can play better. And UNLV, I think people just kind of wrote them off after they lost to Boise State. And we're like, well, we're not going to see them. Now they're in the conference championship, higher ranked than Army, knowing that if they win, they're going to be that final automatic spot in the playoff and knock Boise State out after all they've done this year.
Yeah, my thoughts is I'm wondering if there's maybe a world where the college football playoff committee keeps in Boise State if UNLV loses. I don't know how much they like them over Alabama. Obviously, they're falling in the rankings over Alabama right now, but who knows with the way it goes on. It kind of looks like, look, the only thing I don't like about the college football playoffs is that they do this release right before conference championships right before this last week. And so basically, if you're a team like in Alabama and you make that last spot, like what Alabama can't do anything to fall out of that spot, and there's so many teams behind them that can't do anything to overtake them. Uh, that it is a little bit frustrating. So it feels like some teams just don't have a chance to prove themselves after this week. That is, but that's part of it. Everybody had the chance at the beginning of the year to make their conference championships, and they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So it's up to the cases you make during the season. But I just wonder, we talked about it earlier this season. I alluded to it that, we would probably see this matchup again between UNLV and Boise State. And these two teams would be playing against each other for most likely a chance to get in. I was worried about if one of these teams lost, maybe that losing all the steam, and then maybe the American could come up if they, split this season series. But obviously now with the way the American has ended up working out, UNLV looks like they're going to have the path to get in if they can win this game. So it'll be absolutely exciting, must see football. Two teams playing for the right to play for a national championship, which I think is pretty incredible for the group of five and for college football.
Well, not only that, I mean, just again, with the 12 team playoff, this game would have been just one, and last year's 4 team would have been one. It's like, this is a great one to see who wins the conference. It really doesn't have an impact. Now,
Yeah.
this game has a major impact determining who gets to go in the playoff. So, again, the 12 team playoff continues to rule as we expected.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting more teams involved, more excitement. Yeah, I'm with you. It's absolutely groundbreaking what they're doing to college football and how they're making it more interesting. Like people said, games aren't going to matter as much with a 12-team playoff. Bowl games won't matter. Conference games won't matter. Conference championship games won't matter. And clearly, we're seeing right now a conference championship game that a year ago was just a conference championship game is now a play-in game for the college football playoff. So I think that speaks right there to the magnitude of it.
I think so. And also, some people, I saw a thing for Penn State, Oregon for the Big Ten championship. They said the ticket price to get in is like like 12, $15 at the cheapest. And they're like, see, this is what the 12 team playoff meant. It doesn't matter. People aren't going to go watch. And I'm like, listen, you can talk about it. They're both in, yes. But the loser of that game has to play in the first round. The winner of that game gets a bye. People, I think, are forgetting that here
Yeah.
is that they get an automatic move on to the next round if you win these conference championships. They got to play a home game, or if you're Penn State, depending on how the game goes, you could drop to 8 or 9 and have to go on the road in the first round, which would not be easy at all. So they matter every single aspect of them.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. And you talk about a team like Penn State, if they drop a game to, they dropped the game to Ohio State earlier, they drop a game to Oregon, they're looking at not just playing in the first round, but most likely playing on the road in the first round. Really, it's bye for Penn State or a road game for Penn State. At least, if you're Oregon, you lose this game, you're probably still going to host a playoff game. But for a team like a Penn State, you might be in, but your chances improve exponentially by winning this conference championship game. So I agree with you that it still matters. Seeding is important. Obviously, this is the first year, so we'll see how seeding really, the bye, how that affects teams, and how the home game has an effect. The one thing I don't like about the college football playoff, I know we're kind of lingering on this subject. The one thing I kind of don't like is that the teams that get a bye don't get to play a game at home. They go straight into neutral site bowl games. And while I know that bowl games want to still have this involvement from the big teams, these big bowls want the big teams, and that's what college football wants as well. But I hate that a team like Boise State is actually kind of going to get cheated by being one of the top four teams in the country if they do end up being a four, because they won't get to host a playoff game. And imagine them being a four and having a Georgia have to come to Boise State and what it could mean to have a fan full of Bronco or a stadium full of Broncos fans, just absolutely going wild with the dogs in town. I think that would be a great sight for college football that unfortunately just is impossible right now. I know what they were preparing for by making that 12 seed, the fifth conference champion, no matter what. They were preparing for a group of five team to not be ranked in the top 12, uh, and to, them being like 14 or 15, and that 14 or 15th best team just taking that last spot. But I think that if the fifth best conference champion is ranked higher than 12, then they should get whatever spot on the bracket they're ranked at, or, they'd fall based on the rankings, as opposed to just automatically assuming the 12th seed. Because I think if you're good enough to get, if you're up, I mean, even if you're Arizona State and it somehow shakes where you could be a 5 or a 6, um, Arizona State, I'm sure, would much rather be playing at home than playing on the road and playing the best of the 5 uh,
Yeah.
as a conference champion. I think that deserves a little bit more respect. Obviously, it's something that they can tweak. Um, but let's get back to it. Then on Friday, we had a true thriller. Number 6 Georgia storming back at home against Georgia Tech to win in 8 overtimes. And look, this was a great ball game. Kept you on the edge of your seat. The big thing in this game for me, I'm not going to come back and make this about officiating, because it really,
Yeah.
Georgia Tech had a lot of opportunities, especially in overtime, to put this game away. But it's hard to ignore the what I thought was pretty clear targeting on Haynes King that forced a fumble. Uh, I mean, what, inside the 10, inside the
Was in
15?
their own red zone with like
Yeah,
2 or 3 minutes left in the game. So I mean, it was pivotal.
led to the game tying touchdown. And uh, I just couldn't help but feel like that had a huge impact, especially since, I mean, Haynes King didn't make, that was his one mistake of the game. He didn't make a single other mistake in the game. He played it exactly right. Um, but look, again, Georgia Tech had the opportunity to finish this game. I was absolutely sick to my stomach. They got the pass interference in fifth overtime, had the chance to win it from the 1 yard line, and did a QB draw from the shotgun. Get on the line with Haynes King
Tush
and
push
get,
for the win, boys. Tush
yeah,
push for the win.
get in an I form and either give that ball to Jamal Haynes or give that ball to Haynes King and put this ball in the end zone. I just don't know who they were fooling there. Look, everybody knew it was quarterback run, but get the quarterback on the line, get 2 tight ends and a fullback behind him, and throw him in the end zone. I mean, it felt simple enough, but Georgia snuffs off any attempt for Tech to win it. Tech snuffs off attempts for Georgia to win it. And finally, it comes down to Georgia getting in the end zone in that 8th overtime and punching their ticket, winning the game. You know, pretty much, Joe Tessitore was pretty certain that a win here was going to put him in the college football playoff. He couldn't stop saying it. Um, but look, I mean, you can't disagree with him. But to me, this game really, while played well by Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech's not a bad team, it's not the game I'd want to have on my resume if I end up with 3 losses after the SEC championship.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
Um, Especially, look, I know you went to the conference championship, and they're probably going to get, first dibs compared to an Alabama, a South Carolina, or an Ole Miss. But I'm just saying, the way the season kind of finished took you to 8 overtimes with the Georgia Tech team that really you should have had much more success with. Really, you should have lost to, honestly. And you look at the way a team like South Carolina finished out the season. Just could be, something to think about for the College Football Playoff Committee. I think, to me, that close of a game, even with it being a win, I'd want to win the SEC championship. Not only just for the bye, but I feel like that's the more guaranteed way in. 3 losses, I think you got to start having more. There's more to think about. That I don't think Georgia will miss the playoffs, but I do think that there's more to think about if Georgia loses this SEC championship game.
Yeah, I think there's that, but also, I mean, you got to have it in the back of Georgia's mind last year, entering the conference championship week. They were number one in the country. Everyone felt even if they lost, they were a shoe in to get in. They lose to Bama, all of a sudden they drop from 1 to 6. So even though we all feel like, especially Joe Tessitore, feels like this is a shoe in, they're guaranteed in. I don't think you're going to see that in Georgia's mind in this game. And if they don't treat it like that, then this could be an interesting scenario we could see with Texas. But I think they remember last year knowing that they felt they were going to be in no matter what, and then they were stunned to see them go from 1 to 6. So I think that's definitely in the back of minds of Georgia for this week.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly going to be on the back of their minds. You should see, just a different Georgia team, a team that really wants to go out and prove themselves. I mean, like you said, that was just last year that we saw that kind of turned upside down college football playoff. What the first time in the college football playoff era that we've ever seen a team number one in the penultimate rankings fall. So certainly something's going to be on the back of their mind, and certainly something that could have an impact on the way this game is played and looked at, and give the game some more value. So yeah, you absolutely don't want to have a stumble now. Don't want to have bad showings. Um, Number 15 South Carolina, they finish hot with a big win over number 17 Clemson to make the college football playoff race a little bit more interesting. Look, they've made a case for themselves to be one of these teams to sneak in at the end. Um, and a win over Clemson, they needed it. It really shows how good this team can be. But unfortunately, when you really start to break down some of the analytics on it, as much fun as this team would be uh, in the college football playoff over a Bama or an Ole Miss would be so much more interesting. They've got a loss to Bama on the season. They've got a loss to Ole Miss on the season. Really, logically, they're just eliminated. I'd love for something stunning to happen in these college football playoff rankings, but when you really break it down, there's pretty much no justification.
Yeah, I love them. I'll be rooting for them, but I mean, it's a logical reason. It's not like it's like, oh, this is unfair. It's like, I mean, they lost head to head to Ole Miss in a blowout. They lost head to head to Alabama. I mean, it makes sense why they're ranked where they're at, and that's unfortunate given where the rankings are at with that. But yeah, I love the game. I thought Lenore Sellers was incredible. I'll just go ahead and tell you this. I posted it on the internet. I plan to put some money on him for preseason Heisman odds next year if he stays at South Carolina. I think he has potential to be a Heisman Trophy winner next year. If he comes back to South Carolina, depending on what they have coming back as well, I'll probably do more research in the offseason whenever it comes to that. But talent wise, he's extraordinary if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. He's sensational, and he's going to be a treat to watch no matter where he ends up next year. Um, look, we talk about a game right here, the game that everybody thinking about. And look, I came on here and I said it. I talked about playing spoiler. I talked about some teams want to win the rivalry for the good old fashioned point of winning a rivalry. Wolverines had won three straight against the Buckeyes, and looking to make it four. Sharon Moore's first year as a head coach, but hey, he won this game last year as the head coach. Don't forget that. Jim Harbaugh was out, and Sharon Moore coached this team. Ryan Day remembers that. Looking for a chance to make, the Big Ten championship. Look, you control your own destiny for Ohio State. Win this game, you get another date with the Oregon Ducks, and it just does not come to fruition. I don't know how Ryan Day prepares for the biggest games of the season, but he's doing it wrong. Well, he's just flat out doing it wrong. They come out, they play the exact kind of game that Michigan needs. I mean, a gritty and physical game? Why? Why? Oh, I don't understand it. That's all this team can do is run the ball. That's all the Wolverines can do is run the ball. And they played into their hands. They missed two chip shot field goals in this game. Nothing went Ohio State's way. It was just overall one of the biggest chokes I think in recent college football memory. Props to Michigan. They did exactly what I said they were going to do, though. They were going to control this game. They were going to keep it close. Now, I didn't think this team was going to come out and win. I thought they were just going to cover their plus 20 and a half. But clearly, this team had other ideas, make it four straight in the game. And look, just Ryan Day doesn't seem to have the answers. I was saying this, maybe I'm jumping to conclusions here. I would have fired him after the game. I don't care that you're probably going to the college football playoff. This is just inexcusable. Ryan Day hasn't won, I don't think he's won a big game in his career. Maybe Notre Dame game.
I
That's the
mean, and I
biggest.
guess technically, if you want to count the Penn State games as big games as well, but I mean, as far as Michigan concerned, no. The other thing that annoys me again, you talked about, they just made it into a physical game. Will Johnson, arguably the best corner in college football, is out for the game with an injury. You were having success throwing the ball. Throw the freaking ball. It's not hard. If the best corner in college football is out with an injury, that in my mind, if I'm offensive coordinator, I'm like, hey, not only is that, we got arguably one of the best freshman wide receivers in the country, one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country, full of NFL guys. Why the frick are we running the football so much? I don't get it. And look, I get Will Howard through the 2 interceptions, and they were bad interceptions. I'll just say that. But you were going to have a better chance of winning this game if you made Michigan play catch up with you throwing the ball. I mean, Davis Warren only had 62 yards passing. He didn't have to pass the football in this game. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was speechless about it. I told myself the whole morning, it's not going to happen, but if it happens, it would be the funniest thing to happen all college football season. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened here. Ohio State. And I'll just go and say the Ryan Day stuff for firing. If they lose in the first round of the playoff, I think he actually has a legit chance to get fired.
I mean,
If they lose in the first round, I think he's gone.
I just don't know how you can excuse it. You had the Oregon game, a chance to defend the conference that you believed was yours in an early season matchup. You lose that game by a point. Sure, I get it. Don't fire him there. It was a close game. You put up a fight. But then you come into this game, a game that should have been a shoe-in, a shoe-in. They can't pass the football. You're the better team. You went out and recruited a bunch of the best players in the country to join you in the transfer portal. Not to mention you get a stud freshman at wide receiver. Yeah, I mean, you rebuild this team and you go and you drop 10 points in this game. You can't go out there and finish drives. You can't go out there and score on a 6-5 Michigan team. And look, this is why you say rivalries don't matter in the 12-team playoff era. You say games don't matter anymore. Stop saying games don't matter. Michigan had nothing to play for. This was their national championship this year, and they went out and dominated it. So all they think about this offseason is not the 5 losses or the 6 other wins they got this year. They'll be thinking about the fact that they won 4 straight against Ohio State, and they kept that senior class from winning a single game in this rivalry. That is unbelievable and unexcusable. Look, I get sometimes you get dominated in a rivalry. Sometimes rivalries have that happen. But in a situation like this, where you have the better team and the better players, and you're the only one playing for something, you got to go out there and win the game. That's not getting your guys fired up. That's bad coaching.
And also, I mean, nonetheless, I mean, let's just address it. Nick Saban said it best, at the beginning of the year, $20 million roster. And they went out this offseason to make that roster with the intent of beating Michigan. They went out, and that's why they did it. And Nick said it best. If you don't get the right players, you'll be crap out of luck. He didn't say crap. I'm not going to say word for word what he said. But you'll be crap out of luck if you don't got the right players. And that's what happened in this game.
Yeah, it was just shameful. Ryan Day should be ashamed of himself, honestly. Then we have Syracuse eliminating Miami potentially from the playoffs. Or as it stands right now, they are. Look, this is a game Miami needed to win. And, this felt like a situation, I don't know, I would have rested a little bit easier. South Carolina wins, and I know that doesn't affect your matchup with Clemson, the ACC championship, but you have your own destiny. It's a good Syracuse team, but not a great Syracuse team. This is a game you're supposed to win. In a similar situation, I almost have the same feelings for Mario Cristobal that I do for Ryan Day, except second year, this was a bigger turnaround for this team. But how do you not? I just don't understand. Look, I live for the chaos in college football, and I'm excited to see these games happen. But just from a logical standpoint, how do you let this happen? You have the most effective offense in college football at Miami, just statistically speaking, and you can't win this game. Syracuse is a great team. Kyle McCord played out of his mind in a day, funny enough, where the Buckeyes fall because they can't get any offense going. But this is just it was just a mind-boggling to me that it was just a win, and you're in the ACC championship, probably going to college football playoff. and now you're on the outside looking in, most likely.
My whole thing with this is number one, I didn't bring this game up 2 weeks before it was played for just a random reason. This was a trap game as it gets. And Miami got up 21-0, just like that, on them. And I felt there's no way Syracuse gets back against this Miami offense, the kind of stops they would need to get. But yet, somehow they tied it back up. They took the lead on that fumble in the fourth quarter. And then Miami has it 4th and goal inside the 10-yard line against Syracuse in the final few minutes. And they decide to kick the field goal with 3 minutes left. Mario, buddy, you have, like you said, they have arguably the best offense in college football. You have arguably the best QB in college football. And yet you're going to kick the field goal and trust in a defense that has performed like it has constantly this year. You're going to trust your defense to get you a stop and get you the ball back? Are you freaking kidding me? No, the game's on the line with that offense. I want the ball in Cam Ward's hands to make a play to tie it up. I ain't relying on my defense. I'm giving it to Cam Ward. And even if you don't get it, they're backed up inside their own 10-yard line. I mean, either way, you have a better chance than kicking a field goal, giving them field position inside, starting at the 20 or 25-yard line to stop them on 3 straight downs. I mean, it was horrible. Again, horrible late game management from Miami, and Mario Cristobal cost them this game. But nonetheless, credit to Syracuse. Like you said, Kyle McCord played out of his mind. The offense played incredible. But Miami straight up blew this. They blew it.
Yeah, and then finally, let's take a look at a game that decided the SEC championship. Texas punched their ticket with a win over number 20 Texas A&M, and look, this was the kind of game Texas needed to get the wheels turning just before the college football playoff, just before that conference championship. They win this game, they're probably in regardless, but a win in the SEC championship gets you that bye and gets you even more momentum. Texas looked really, really good in this game.
Yeah, I will just say the environment for that game was exactly what I was anticipating. The environment was amazing. The environment for that
Yeah.
game was incredible. I think they said there were 7,000 more fans than seats at the actual game. So that doesn't tell you what it was. I don't know what does. And the amount of people that got kicked out for counterfeit tickets was also really funny to me.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a staggering amount, and also some guys who faked being construction workers to try to get into the game. They tried their best, but they couldn't do it. But as far as the game's concerned, uh, with all that momentum and all that energy from the crowd, A&M couldn't do crap offensively.
Yeah.
This should have been, and they're lucky that Texas was screwing up in the red zone. This should have been a 31-0 Texas win. This should have been 31-0 Texas just dominated A&M. But you have the pick six. Then you have the block punt, and you have a chance at the goal line. Listen, I know you want to go for the touchdown there, but in that scenario, you have not done anything against them all day offensively. Why would you think you could get 1 yard against them when you can kick the field goal, make it a one-score game to give yourself a chance if you don't, if even when not scoring a touchdown there. Said they go for it. It's one of the worst 1 yard 4th and goal plays I've seen in a long time. And I mean, the game was over after that. I mean,
Yeah.
Texas dominated this game. They dominated. It was never really a contest. They just kept on shooting themselves in the foot and giving the Aggies chances, and they just never got it done.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you there. Let's take a look at these rankings, the top 12 or 15-ish teams here. At number 1, Oregon remains the same. Obviously, nothing happening for them, so they're not going anywhere. Texas moves up to 2, Penn State to 3, Notre Dame to 4, and Georgia to 5, with Ohio State falling all the way down to 6. Yeah, this was a pretty monumental fall for the Buckeyes, but rightfully so. This was a game you couldn't lose. I love seeing the Irish get into number 4. Basically clinches them most likely the top seed outside of the buys.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically clinching. They'll be that 5 seed. They're going to get whoever that last team into the playoff it's going to be. My thing here is with Ohio State, and obviously it involves another team that we're going to talk about in a bit. If the other team that I'm talking about, referring to Miami, dropped 6 spots for their loss to a 9-3 Syracuse team, then then what is Ohio State? Why do they only get to drop 4 spots for losing to a 6-5 or now 7-5 Michigan team at home? At least Miami's was on the road in a tough environment. I just don't get Ohio State only dropping 4 spots because of that. I think they should have dropped a little bit more. But I mean, look, 1 through 5, exactly what we expected. I ain't got no problem. The top five's been consistent for the last couple of weeks. They've been very consistent with the top five, and that's the same here.
I'm with you there. The thing I hate about this, as we'll get into a little bit later, I just don't think SMU is getting enough love here.
Exactly.
But Tennessee at 7, SMU at 8, Indiana at 9, Boise State at 10, Alabama at 11, and Miami sits at 12. So that rounds out our top 12 here, and like you said, Miami falling the 6 spots is rough. I'm sorry, I hate Alabama at 11.
Yeah. My problem is let me say this. If you were to rank Alabama over Miami, I would generally have no issue with that portion. I think Alabama has a better as a whole resume, tougher schedule. They have now, however, my thinking here is if you're going to rank Alabama ahead of Miami, why wouldn't you rank Ole Miss ahead of Miami? Their schedule is better. Their ranking's better. Why wouldn't you rank South Carolina ahead of them? Their schedule is better. Their wins are better. My thinking is if you're going to draw Miami and move Bama and them in front, drop them behind those other teams. Otherwise, it looks like it does here that they're just like, oh, we're just going to put Bama in to the playoff because we can. That's what it looks like here. I'm sure that's not the reasoning. And then they said, well, my Alabama's 3-1 versus the top 25. Miami's 0-1. You created the top 25. You are the ones who created the rankings.
Yeah.
That doesn't sell it. I don't know what does. They created the ranking. They're like, well, Alabama did good against the top 25. In other words, yeah, we wanted to make Alabama look good against the top 25. That's what that says here. That just infuriates me that the way they did it. If they would have dropped Miami behind Ole Miss and South Carolina, I would not have as big of an issue with it. But because it's just we're just going to move Bama 1 spot up and get them into that playoff, and say the top 25 wins is the reason. That is honestly of all the things this committee done, that's one of the things that has ticked me off the most.
Yeah, one thing that just makes me sick to my stomach is I think Arizona State and Iowa State should be in the top 12 here, or at least in the top 13. They should be ahead of Alabama. They should be ahead of Ole Miss, of South Carolina, maybe even Miami. But these are two teams that are going to be playing for a conference championship. I think at least one of these teams should be sitting in that top 12.
And
Especially,
also, I just want to say Boise State, or not Boise State, BYU, why are they down 18? I think they should be higher. Keep in mind, they have a win over SMU, a top 10 team. They beat several 8-4, 9-3 teams as well. I get they lost to, Kansas. That's a bad loss. Don't get me wrong. But they lost to Arizona State, a team who's ranked down. I'm not saying BYU should be like in the top 12, but I think they deserve to be higher than 18 based on their resume. Their resume's better than some of these teams up here. It's better.
yeah, I agree with you there. But look, this is the last weekend. Anything can change, as we learned last year. We talked about it a little bit earlier. So it's up to the committee to decide. It's up for teams to go out and make their final cases for a spot in that top 25. But let's get to our teams and players of the week and see how our much less biased committee made their decisions. And we'll start with team of the week. At number 5, I went with Texas. I felt like of all the games this weekend and of all the big winners this weekend who really made a big statement, I feel like Texas was the most expected result. But I still think you're playing for an SEC championship and your first year being in the SEC. This was still a big moment on the road, a lot of pressure, and they were able to come through with it. Then at number 4, I went with the Memphis Tigers. Look, this was a game where you weren't really playing for much. You're playing for pride. The conference championship was already decided between Tulane and Army, even though you're another very talented ball club in this conference. But this was a chance to send a message against a ranked team on your way out the door before bowl season. And that's exactly what they did, going out and getting a big win. At number 3, Syracuse got to play spoiler against Miami. They come out, shut them down, and make some room for Clemson in the ACC championship, giving Dabo his Hail Mary hope at a college football playoff appearance. At number 2, I went with South Carolina. This was a team that, they heard some noise and some chatter coming into the week that maybe they can make a case for themselves in the college football playoff. They get a win, they close the season out hot. They could find themselves at the bottom of that top 12 and maybe make their way into a college football playoff. It certainly would be an incredible statement to have on the resume, especially if Clemson were to go on and win the ACC. Maybe that could help them figure it out, even though it might be a little more crammed in that top 12. Uh, but it was just a big win for them to go out and, like I said, a rivalry game, go out there and really make some noise and put your team on the map. A team that I said a couple weeks ago, man, imagine if the LSU game had gone a little bit, they stay healthy in the LSU game and Bama, had they been able to close out that game, they could be, a one-loss team right now in the college football playoff. And, I said that thinking that they had no chance. And now there's a very, very slim chance that the committee might see them in. I wrote them off too early, but, I mean, you think about it now, they'd be in the conference championship if they had won those 2 games that I just talked about. So, been an incredible run for them. And then at number 1, I went with Michigan. This is the ultimate spoiler game. Rival, a team that you hate, their chance to go to the Big Ten championship and get themselves back at the top of this conference. And you say, not so fast. Make it just filthy, nasty, physical football, exactly how you wanted to play this game. And you go out and get the win and take that streak to 4. Just incredible run by Michigan.
Top 5, exact same top 5 teams, just a little bit different order there. Number 5, I had Memphis there again. Credit them with the win going out. You wonder how close they are with the 2 losses they had in their games. I believe they lost to Navy, and then I think they lost to UTSA. They win both those games. This could be a defining moment where we're talking about them, but unfortunately we're not. And so yeah, had to put them number 5. Number 4, Texas. I would have put them up higher had they dominated more. But yeah, they gave A&M chances, but they still denied them at the very end. They went into that insane environment and came out with a win. They absolutely had to be number 4. Number 3 for me, South Carolina. Again, was a really impressive win, especially given the fact that they almost blew it. They had several chances to take that lead most of the game, weren't taking advantage of it, and then came up with the big touchdown and then the incredible interception to get the win. Number 2, had to go with Syracuse here, getting a win against the top 6 team. Kyle McCord and them look great. They forced turnovers against Miami, coming back from down 3 touchdowns to win this game. Number 2, and then number 1, look, it was simple. Anyone with a brain would have put Michigan number 1 this week on our team of the week. You talked about it. They made Ohio State play their game. And that's what resulted in this massive upset that caused Ohio State to miss the conference championship game. So I had them at number 1 in Austin. I think it's safe to say that the polls would agree with that statement.
Yeah, the polls spoke for themselves. This was a pretty dominant showing for Michigan on and off the field here. Michigan's our overall winners for the week, which just makes a lot of sense.
I mean, nothing else to say. It made a lot of sense. Beat the number 2 team in the country on the road as a 20-point underdog on rivalry week, knocking them out of the conference championship. Yeah, that qualifies as team of the week to me.
Completely agree with you there. Now let's get to those players of the week. At number 5, I went with Lenore Sellers. Look, just an absolutely heroic moment at the end of that game, rushing into the end zone, scoring that touchdown to put them up late. Just phenomenal stuff. You're watching a college football legend in the making right now. When you see a run like that from a freshman, you're like, man, we could get 2 more years of this. That's exciting to think about the story that's being written right before us. At number 4, I went with Haynes King. Look, I know Georgia Tech lost this game, but like I said, Haynes King basically made no mistakes in this game, and he put his heart and soul out there to try and win this rivalry game and lift his team up top. At number three, I went with Khalil Mullings out of Michigan. The stats aren't super endearing. Did get over 100 yards and got a rushing touchdown. But it's just the way, like I said, Michigan controlled this game. Khalil Mullings was a big factor in why the game went the way it did. He had a lot of big runs. He saw the gaps really, really well in this game. His patience and his execution in this game really were the deciding factor in this game down the stretch. Uh, at number two, I'm with Travis Hunter. Uh, we know Travis Hunter. We know the story. This was a phenomenal week. I know it was against Oklahoma State, not a very good team. But look, I've been in the same school of thought for Ashton Jeanty. I don't care so much about level of competition. I think that's such a one-sided argument to make excuses for why one guy's putting up historic greatest of all time numbers and why one guy's putting up, slightly above average numbers. Which was the case for Travis Hunter for a little bit. He wasn't having such good games. If we were saying, oh, he's playing in the Big 12. And then other people were saying, well, if Jeanty played in the Big 12, he wouldn't be having those numbers, which I don't disagree. I disagree with that statement to begin with. I think Ashton Jeanty proved against the level of competition that they have played this year that he can do this against anybody because he did. He did it against the number one team in the nation. But on top of that, I hold it the same way. Colorado played Oklahoma State. Very, very bad team. But I'm still going to give him his love. 3 receiving touchdowns, an interception, almost had 2 or 3 more interceptions in this game. He was all over the place. He played a phenomenal ball game, and he absolutely made this, he's really made great strides and making an exciting Heisman race. But at number one, on the other half of this Heisman race, I got to go Ashton Jeanty. Another stupid amount of yards, another stupid amount of touchdowns. Like I said, level of competition means something when you're ranking teams. But when we're talking about player stats and we're talking about a guy putting up historic numbers and we're talking about the numbers he put up against the number one team in the nation, we talk about the numbers he just puts up on anybody, his averages, they just speak for themselves. This guy should be the Heisman. This guy is my player of the week. One last week before conference championships to show us what he's all about.
Yeah. So basically a completely different top five to say the least. No disrespect to Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty. I just wanted to get some more guys involved. Look, Ashton Jeanty's, if we had to do odds for end of the year, like player of the year for the Michael Penix Jr. award,
Yeah.
Ashton Jeanty's like minus 10,000 right now as the favorite to win that award.
Yeah.
So, safe to say. But my number five, I went with Kyle McCord. Look, he had an incredible game. Can't deny it. Was incredible against that Miami team. Led a comeback in the win. Had to give him credit there. Number four, defense. I got Ethan Herkett from Iowa on the defensive line. Never forget their win against Nebraska on Friday night, Austin. Iowa had 5 first downs in the entire game. And we're down 10-0 at halftime with 5 first downs total whole game. We're down 10-0 and won 13-10. If that doesn't explain what Nebraska football's been through over the past 10 years, I don't know what does. But 2 sacks and a forced fumble. He was incredible. Number 3, I went with Dante Thornton Jr. from Tennessee, the wide receiver. My main thing here is he only had 4 catches, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns, and they were explosive touchdowns that really opened that game up for Tennessee to get them the win. Because don't forget, Vanderbilt was up in that game by double digits early on. So, yeah, I had to show him love. Number 2, Haynes King. Look, I told you personally, I sent you a message. I said, if I don't see a better performance, Haynes King will be my number 1 player. I don't care if he wins or loses this game. Dude was a freaking warrior out there. And this is also coming back from an injury he had halfway through the season, too. So the stats don't lie. Over 100 yards rushing, over 100 yards passing. He did everything. But number 1 is Lenore Sellers for me. The huge run on 4th and 16, or 3rd and 16, excuse me, to scramble, get into the end zone, make the big plays for South Carolina offensively to get the win on the road in that big game. Had to put him at number 1. Absolutely loved him. Can't wait to see what he does in the future as well, given he is only a freshman.
Yeah, just phenomenal. But we take social media picks and a little bit more interesting argument over here. Ashton Jeanty, Haynes King, and Lenore Sellers all grabbing some extra points from our fans. But look, You go to the overall winners, you break down the numbers. Came down to just a 1 point differential. And this time it came down to the way I ranked them. And so, for that being said, Haynes King is our player of the week for the Bold Take podcast. Our Ashton Genty player of the week is Haynes King.
Yeah, I love some Haynes King again. I mean, he was a warrior out there. If there was anyone I wanted to just, like when you watch a game, you're just like, I felt so bad for him. That was me with Haynes King. Like usually you don't
Yeah,
have, I haven't had a lot of that this year, but when they lost, I was like, I just feel terrible for him because he left it all out on the field.
yeah, he played his heart out. It was a very, very gutsy performance. Um, but you alluded to it last week, and here it is. Every single conference championship in order in which they will appear this coming weekend, kind of ish, because some of these games happen at the same time, but I have to put one before the other. Uh, here we go. Let's get into it. First conference championship game we'll see this weekend. Conference USA Western Kentucky versus Jacksonville State. Who you got?
Just a real quick for his fun fact, these two played each other literally last week. The last week of the regular season last week, and Jacksonville State won on a walk-off field, or Western Kentucky won on a walk-off field goal to
Wow.
give them the win over Jacksonville State. And so I think that that's just kind of funny that they're playing each other. But I'll take Jacksonville State in this game. Look, Rich Rodriguez, what he's done there has been impressive. You wonder, there's a West Virginia job opening. I'm just saying there.
Yeah. Potential. But I'm going to go with you. I like Jacksonville State in this game. I think they've been the best team in the Conference USA. They've really been super impressive since coming up to FBS. So I like Jacksonville State here. Then we've got the American Conference Championship, Tulane versus Army. This game has a little bit less meaning than we thought it was going to have earlier in this year, and it's not Army Navy before Army Navy. But yet we've still got the game. We've still got to pick it. Who you got, Tulane or Army?
Um, Normally I would say I'd probably pick Tulane. I think they're the better team, but I am not betting against the troops. I'm going to go with Army to win this game at home, win the conference championship. Simple as that. Don't bet against the troops.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I like Army to win this game. Uh, I think had Tulane won last week, I'd have different feelings because that Notre Dame loss did kind of seem to shake the core of this Army team. But now with Tulane kind of getting leveled in a moment where they could have maybe made a college football playoff statement in this game, now they won't have that same kind of momentum. I feel like the momentum falls back into the hands of our armed forces. So I'm going to go with Army in this one. Mountain West, a play-in game for the conference championship or for the college football playoff. College football playoff will start really with this game. Mountain West Championship, UNLV, Boise State. Who do you got?
Oh man, this was a tough one for me. I went back and forth on this one, but I think even though I love Ashton Genty, and I mean, let's just say it, he is the Heisman winner. I think if fans had the vote and the fan votes truly mattered, then Ashton Genty's the Heisman winner. But nonetheless, here I just have questions about the rest of Boise State's team besides Ashton Genty. They have struggled over the last couple weeks. Keep in mind, they were this close to losing to a 2 or 3 win Wyoming team on the road. So I have questions there. I think people have forgotten about UNLV and forgot just how close they were to beating Boise State in this game. I'm going to take UNLV to pull off the upset against Boise State on Friday night. And somehow, even though we all forgot about them, UNLV gets that final spot in the college football playoff.
Probably in my life if that happens.
Yeah.
But it'd be the worst day in quite a while for my hero, my icon. But
Disappointment's immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
yeah. But I look, I'm with you. People have forgotten about UNLV. This is one of the best defenses in the entire country. Uh, and it's facing off against the best player in the entire country. Who comes out on top? Look, I know you say you're worried about Ashton Genty's teammates, and I am too. But what has happened this entire season when the team gets themselves in a pickle?
And the
Ashton
mouth.
Genty gets them out. And I think that's what happens in this game. He controls the pace, he gets the job done, and he finds the end zone plenty of times in this one. I like Boise State to clinch their spot in the college football playoff. Then we've got some action. Ohio versus Miami of Ohio. Who you like in this
Real
match?
Miami.
Yes, the real Miami.
Yeah. I picked Miami, Ohio to win the conference in the preseason, so I have to roll with my preseason pick. I'm going to take Miami, Ohio. It's just as simple as that. I picked them because I believed in their defense. They're here. I'm going to take them to win it.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I think Miami of Ohio is just the better team. They were looking like one of the best teams coming into this MAC year. Them and Toledo have really kind of dominated this conference as of late. This feels like a no-brainer pick to me. Then we've got the Big 12 championship, a lot at stake. Probably another one of our early college football playoff games because right now, the way things look, both of these teams, there's not enough room for both. So somebody's got to win and get in, and somebody's got to go home. Uh, who you like? Iowa State, Arizona State.
Oh man, can I just say if you had Arizona State, Iowa State in your preseason in the conference championship, no, you didn't.
You're a liar.
Just straight enough. I'll just be dead honest with you. Similar to my reasoning whenever I picked Arizona State to take down BYU, this is straight momentum. And I don't think there is anyone in the Big 12 that is going to stop Arizona State from winning this conference championship. I like the Sun Devils to not just win here, I like them to roll in this game.
I'm going to go against you on this one. Look, I like Arizona State. I like Cam Scatterbo. I like the way this team has played as of late. But when I look at this team, I think the more talented team is the Iowa State team. And they lost some steam after they got their losses, and it looked like they had no hope. But then the light at the end of the tunnel these last couple of weeks, they started to heat up, and they had a path. They controlled their own destiny. They won. They could get back in. They would get into this conference championship. That's exactly what they did. I think the momentum's riding high. I like this Iowa State team to get the job done and win the Big 12. Then we've got the SEC, Georgia versus Texas. And I'll get my pick out of the way right away. Just like you said with the MAC, I picked Texas to win this team in the preseason or to win this conference in the preseason. And so I'm going to stick to that. I'm going to stick to my guns and try and make myself look good for once.
Now for me, I'll just be straight up. I like Georgia in this game again. I think similar to whenever we talked about earlier, I think the memory in their mind of last year, knowing, feeling they were confidently in, and then somehow getting kicked out of it at the very last second. I think that's in their mind. They're going to come in. I think it'll be a lot better game than the first matchup between these two. Because I think Texas will play better offensively, but I'm going to take Georgia to win this game.
Then we've got the Sun Belt Championship, Marshall versus Louisiana. Who you got?
So this is an interesting one for multiple reasons, especially for Marshall's head coach. So he's actually not signed on to a contract after this year. So they have not given him an extension yet, and now he's in this conference championship. Charles Huff, I believe, is the name. So I am solely rooting for him and Marshall to win this game, and then someone else give him a job next year at a higher level. That's what I'm rooting for in this game. So I'm going to take the Thundering Herd of Marshall.
I like that. I'm also going to take Marshall for a slightly different reason. Some of you may remember we talked about it on the Bull Take podcast ages and ages ago when the college football game first came out. Marshall was my first team to do it with Braylon Braxton and Tyshawn Chapman. Unbelievable connection. I won 2 Heismans with wide receiver Tyshawn Chapman. So I'm going to trust that Braylon Braxton, Tyshawn Chapman connection that led me to a national championship. I got to go with Marshall here.
I like it.
Now let's get to the Big 10. Penn State versus Oregon. Like you said, stakes not as high in this one. Both will probably get into the college football playoff, but chance to improve your situation exponentially by winning this game. Who do you got, Penn State or Oregon?
So if I'm thinking clearly here and I'm thinking, not biased at all, Oregon is the better team. Oregon's been dominant all year and everything, but I am slightly biased in this moment. There is a path for Penn State to be the number 1 seed in the college football playoff, ladies and gentlemen. And if that's there, I'm freaking riding with it. So give me Penn State to win this game. That's my whole reasoning. I want a 1 seed Penn State because everyone would be like, there's no way in the world Penn State's going to be the 1 seed. And if they win this game, they are going to be that 1 seed.
Yeah, here's the thing. The fans should have known this was coming a long time ago. Look, we've tried to We've tried to mask it. We tried to be a Missouri podcast. We tried to be a Miami podcast. But if you've really watched the show for a long time, you know that there's really only one team that our hearts beat for: James Franklin and the Penn State Nittany Lions. We tried to hide it this year. The last couple of years, we've been homers. We've been pulling for them. Neither of us picked Penn State to win this conference at the beginning of the season this year. The first time in like 3 years. But here we are, a conference championship, and James Franklin stands there. And if you thought we were picking anybody else, you're absolutely wrong. I'm riding with James Franklin till I die. Penn State by 50 million points.
Exactly. There you go.
And finally, a game with massive stakes. The finale to what are basically is a three-parter intro to our college football playoff before we actually get there. The ACC championship, Clemson versus SMU. Realistically, there should be enough space for both these teams if Clemson were to win this game, but I know that the committee is going to throw SMU by the wayside if they lose this game. So, really, from the committee's perspective, not enough room for both these teams. Somebody's got to go. Who wins the ACC and claims probably the 4 seed?
For me, I mean, I'll just say it. I like SMU solely because similar to what you said, because the committee basically the way it's set up here with SMU at 8 is if they lose, they're going to be sweating it out on the selection show on Sunday. I think they realize that. And to be honest with you, again, I have not seen this Clemson team when they have played good teams this year. They have not won. They have not won. They really did not look good against South Carolina last week, but South Carolina kept on stumbling over its own feet. But you look at that, the Georgia game got blown out. Louisville was in control that whole time. And then South Carolina is able to beat you as well. No reason not to go with the Pony Express of the SMU Mustangs.
I'm right there with you in exactly what you said. Clemson can't beat good teams. The pressure just has seemed to gotten to this team all year. And the pressure's no higher than it is in this game. I don't know why that would make Clemson all of a sudden this team that it hasn't been all year. I think this is the easiest no-brainer SMU pick of all time. So there's our conference championship game picks. Now, take us to the bet of the week, Austin Waiter. What are you cooking for us in the laboratory?
Well, before that, we have the records currently for the bet of the week records. I got them all together for you here. This is including NFL from this past week, but just college football alone. Because of me going 2-1, and I believe you went 1-2. I believe so.
I think so.
This week in college football, I am sitting at 14-10, and you are sitting at 13-11 in college football right now. So this weekend was a big factor in NFL. I'm 7-4-1 with a push, and you are 6-5-1 with a push. So right now, it is me at 21-14-1, and you at 19-16-1.
That is just unbelievable, but you love to see it.
Yeah. So for my bet of the week, look, I'll just be dead honest with you. I'm going to ride with the hot hand in Arizona State again. I'm going to take them -2. I feel very confident they're going to win this game. Rolling with the Sun Devils. It doesn't get any easier than that for me. Arizona State is going to win this game.
Look, for one of the biggest weekends in all of college football, it's an exciting weekend. I did something I've absolutely never done before on this show. I've picked one bet from every conference championship game that we just talked about right here on the podcast, and I've already put them in a parlay. I've already made these bets. I'm going to read them to you. I'm going to read their odds individually, and I'm going to read my overall odds. And we're going to see what happens this weekend. But here's my diabolical parlay of the week. Jacksonville State, -4.5. That's -110 odds. Army, money line, +184 odds. Genty, over 3 touchdowns, +150. Iowa State, money line, +111. Miami of Ohio, money line, -128. Texas, -2.5, -115 odds. Marshall, money line, +117 odds.
SMU minus 2.5, minus 110 odds. Penn State plus 3.5, minus 115 odds. When you put it all together, you're a sicko like me, and you make this bet on Betly, is where I made this bet. Feel free to sponsor me, but this is free advertisement right here for Betly. Plus 107,064 odds.
That is insane. You know what? You know what? Screw it. I have a couple in hand. There's some I'll
Yeah,
probably just wheel out here. I'll match you with it. Let's go. I'll match you with it
like,
right now.
like it.
All right. So I'll be honest with you. Jacksonville stayed in Western Kentucky. With the way the final score was 19-17 last week, I won't do the same one as you. I'll take under 57.5. That's what I'll do for that one. I'll take the under there. I will take Army money line with you. I will take Army money line. Um, Also, I'm tempted to go with the under in UNLV and Boise State as well. I think this will be lower scoring than people think. So two unders and a money line so far than Saturday. Miami, Ohio, -2 is where I'm going with mine. I'm right there with you. I got Arizona State -2. I already told you that's my bet of the week. I like Georgia money line in this game in the SEC championship. I also like the Marshall money line for that one as well. Penn State plus 3.5. I like them in that one. And then I like SMU -2.5. So there you go. We not only do we pick every single conference championship, we gave you a bet for every single one. You are welcome, America.
Yeah, we've done you a service here. But it's a great weekend of college football. The college football playoff really does start this weekend. Some teams are going to have to make their cases. They're going to have to fight to get in. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a great week of college football action. I hope that I can. But that's Austin Waiter. I'm Austin Hill, and we want to thank you for listening.